How did you ever conceive of, I might want to go into football and make it a full-time job? And like, tell us where this started for you.
A love of the game. I didn't actually know that I could make it a full-time job. But what I did know is that playing, I had some of the best practical experience you could ever have. And so I believed if I could take that and marry it with my master's in sports psychology and my PhD in psychology, that I could be a unique value proposition to the sport, right? That I could have a special vantage point that would add value. And so that was my plan. I was actually coaching coaches on coach-athlete relationship and feedback and all of the things that you need in coaching without seeing that, I might actually be suited for a coach. And it was Wendell Davis, former Dallas Cowboy, who took over as head coach on the men's team that I played for. And he saw how the guys related to me. And the next day called me after grilling me on football and said, you have to coach my football team. And I instinctively said, no. I'm like, no, I can't do that. Women don't coach football. And he said, not a lot of guys are going to give you this opportunity. You're taking this job. And though I turned it down, he actually took it on my behalf and told me about it later and told me I couldn't quit. And, that's something interesting about women. A lot of the times we won't project ourselves up into situations, right, that our male counterparts would, because we overcheck the boxes. And it did take him seeing something in me before I even saw it in myself. So it's really nice to know that now girls can look at football and see themselves there, or can look at coaching and see that it's a possibility for them, because I needed someone else to see it in me to make that happen. And I hope that they move with more confidence than I initially have.
Yeah, interesting. It's a similar path there in terms of both of the guests here have a PhD in psychology. So it's going to be a fascinating chat to get under the hood of the minds of performers as well as this trailblazer theme. But Justine, you're also a PhD sports psych. I think that's correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so was the journey for you a similar one where it was like, well, there's no women coaching in baseball, so maybe I'll just be a psychologist around baseball. I know some of my colleagues in Major League Baseball are some of the best at my job, arguably better than me, are the girls. And so was that the angle that you were looking to take, or was it a little bit of a different path for you?
No, I knew I wanted to be a baseball coach. I was 13 when I was first told I should quit baseball because I was a girl, and I just kind of decided I'll play forever. And at 16, I decided I wanted to be a college baseball coach. And the first person I told was my coach, and he just laughed at me. And he said, no man would listen to a woman on a baseball field. And I was really embarrassed because I was actually a very shy kid, so it was a big deal to share this dream and then to be immediately laughed at. But I just started thinking, who's he to decide what I can do and what men will do? So that was the moment where I started training to become a coach. And I started working camps and learning everything I could. And I knew I wanted to get a PhD so I could out-educate, the other coaches. I would have something in my toolbox that the other men didn't have. And I went on and became a college coach. And of course, men don't care. It's a little bit of a shock at first to have a woman, but then, as long as you can make them a better player and you care about them, they don't care. They get over it very quickly. So once I coached college as an assistant coach for 3 years, I ended up professional in 2009. And then in 2015, broke the MLB barrier with A's during instructional league.
Yeah. So a long and winding path, particularly from the age of 13. That's an early time to put a target on something. I think when I was 13, I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I realized what lawyers actually do. I was like, fuck, no.
It wasn't that courtroom drama that you just got to argue with people?
That's exactly what I thought it was. We could just yell things across the courtroom and
Right. That seems cool.
Seems great. And then my cousin had he was actually at a law firm, and I went and did some work experience for 2 weeks. And they gave me a stack of papers, which was hey, read this contract and spell check it. That's how old I am. It was before spell checkers on computers. And it was just oh, that ain't me at all. But anyway, we digress. 13 years old, you decided you wanted to be a coach. But you mentioned something in there that I suspect both of you heard more than once, which is men won't listen to you, or you can't do this, right? I saw Jen, as Justine shared that, you nodded and had a little grin on your face. Yeah, that's kind of familiar, right? There's going to be a number of experiences you both shared in terms of slaps in the face, getting doors closed in your face, pushed away, ignored, whatever. Tell us what toughness means in your experience, in terms of that pathway to being one of the first or to pushing against people who would say no otherwise. What does toughness look like in that scenario?
For me, the thing I want to say is, I heard Justine say I knew that at 13. And I think I wish I'd have had the opportunity to play at 13. Football was one of the first places in the world that, I learned boys and girls were allowed to do different things and we weren't able to play then, right? I didn't get to play football until I was 22 years old. And when I did, I just said, I will step up to every challenge the game puts in my way. And that's been kind of my career philosophy, because when you're first, it's not like the logical goal setting mechanism of like, I want to be here and I'm going to work backwards. Everything we were doing as women in football was groundbreaking, right? Even playing was groundbreaking. And then as I was playing, they had the first US national team. And I was like, I'm doing that, right? And then it was the guys who said, we want you to play. And so it was continually for me just going, all right, okay, this is what we got to do, and figuring out how to do it. And I don't know if it's as much toughness as a lot of people would define it, as much as it was believing that this was where I belonged in the world and saying, okay, how can I be great at each level? And what do I need to bring with me, right? Like, I have people all the time ask me, how did you never quit? And I kind of think, well, on some days I might have quit like 4 or 5 times, but I also quit at quitting because I didn't really know what else to do, right? Because it's not just a job, right? This isn't a job that I'm showing up for. This is who I am. And finding and creating and being in this space is a part of my identity. So I don't know if it fits in the same toughness as much as saying like, this is what I was put here to do, and believing that I'm the one who's here to do it. And yeah, that means it is tough at times, especially getting tackled by guys. That was a tough one, but it's not just a, show up and do it or don't do it. It's this is the place and the space that I'm supposed to be involved in, and it's constant reinvention, and it doesn't look the same every day, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not be in the NFL now. Does that mean you quit or you're not there? No, it's still a part of the journey, but the journey is an evolution of being in sports and being a woman in football, right?
Yeah, it's like a choose your own adventure almost, where like there is no storyline. You kind of choose every time. It says go to this page or that page, and you have to be the first one to make that choice. It's a fascinating nuance that I love. I love the fact that I've got 2 sports psychs on here, because it's a nuance of like not the traditional toughness where it's like grit your teeth and be strong, or emotional endurance. But this is more like what I would refer to, and this came to me from a baseball player who was very religious. He talked about the idea of being values driven and pushing with a deep purpose as spiritual stability. It's like life will knock me around. This will happen. That will happen. I will quit. I'll get up. The next morning, I'll just go again because I don't have a choice. This is who I am. And that was a really cool description from you on that concept. I'm going to probably clip that and use it with some of my students.
Definitely.
Justine, how about you? What would you define as toughness along your journey, either that you've experienced, or you may have now seen others trying to carve the same journey? As we said at the start of the show, there are many more women in the game now. What do you perceive as toughness for people who are trying to get through into areas they're not normally accepted?
Well, I started as a kid and I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. I didn't have anyone who looked like me. Through my journey, I've been spit on, thrown at, told it's against God's way, just flat out said no. Like, I had to be the first person everywhere I went. I always had to be the first. And that wasn't my goal. That was simply just my reality. So to me, being tough is about learning how to fail, learning how to be disappointed, have a dagger in your back, and yet the next day get up and still listen to another podcast so that you can be a better coach. To like just keep working hard when everyone is telling you no. And you can't even see the light. You can only see this concept of a goal. And can you get there? And it's like, well, maybe I'll get there. But I believe it. But I can't guarantee it. Yeah. And yet every day you're working towards something you can't guarantee. And just knowing people, so many people being against you. I mean, I've been called so many things, whether it's online, whether it's in person, sexual attacks type of, verbiage online, stuff like that. But you just keep going. And I don't feel like it's my purpose to do it. I just simply never gave up.